So let me ask you something pretty fundamental. Do you truly control your own mind? Or do you kind of feel like your environment, passing emotions, and random distractions just steer your thoughts for you? We constantly hear about mastering our time or mastering our habits, but today we're going to explore the absolute ultimate foundation of all success: mental mastery. Picture this. It's 1908, and a young Napoleon Hill sits down with the legendary steel magnate Andrew Carnegie, and Carnegie gives him this intense warning. He says, the power with which we think is literally mental dynamite. If you organize it, if you control it, you can build incredible success. But if you leave it unorganized, well, it becomes an explosive that can just as easily blow up your potential and lead to inevitable failure. Welcome to The Explainer. I am incredibly excited to share this with you today. My goal over the next few moments is to capture the essentials of this book in 8 minutes or less in English. We are going to decode the exact mechanics of how to actually own your own mind. And our guide for this journey is the historic text derived from those exact real-life conversations between Napoleon Hill and Andrew Carnegie. This isn't just some fluffy abstract theory, right? This is the distilled, practical wisdom of some of the most phenomenally successful innovators in history. To make this actionable, here is our roadmap. First, creative vision. Second, organized thought. And third, controlled attention.
Okay, let's dive right in. Pillar 1, creative vision, or as I like to call it, the spark.
Now, this first pillar is absolutely not just about daydreaming. It's the highly specific ability to recognize opportunities and then actually grab them. Carnegie pointed out that this vision relies on two very distinct types of imagination. On one hand, we've got synthetic imagination. This is basically taking old ideas, facts, or concepts and just rearranging them like puzzle pieces into new combinations. Most of us do this every day to solve problems at work. But on the other side is creative imagination. And this is much rarer. It springs directly from the subconscious mind, producing entirely new, unprecedented ideas. Accessing that rare creative imagination is where the true, massive breakthroughs happen. Take Henry Ford, for example. The guy didn't invent the wheel, and he definitely didn't invent the engine, but he saw a steam-powered tractor and applied synthetic imagination. He became completely obsessed with the idea of a horseless carriage. He took existing internal combustion technology and figured out how to transmit that power to the wheels of a vehicle. It was his absolute definiteness of purpose, this intense, obsessional desire, that kept his mind relentlessly searching until he literally transformed transportation forever. Moving right along to Pillar 2, organized thought. The blueprint. Now, what's really interesting here is that a spark just isn't enough on its own. It needs mechanics. When we break down the starting point of all achievement, it always begins with desire. But that desire doesn't just materialize out of thin air. It's driven by 9 basic human motives. Things like the emotion of love, the drive for self-preservation, or the need for personal expression. You absolutely have to anchor your goals to these deep-seated motives if you want to generate the sheer mental energy required for success. And once you have that motive-driven desire, you can't just sit on it. You must translate it into a definite major purpose. Then you progress to a concrete plan of attainment. And this is crucial. You form a mastermind alliance. You surround yourself with the experience and knowledge of other people to actually execute your plan. This step-by-step progression, that is the very definition of organized thinking. So how does the machine actually work? Well, your subconscious mind acts as the connecting link to infinite intelligence, which is the source of inspiration. But down below, in your conscious mind, you have different faculties working together: reason, emotion, imagination, and conscience. And sitting right there at the very top, the CEO of all those conscious faculties is willpower. Think about it. When was the last time you let pure frustration dictate a big decision? Your emotions, like fear, anger, or even excessive enthusiasm, are incredibly powerful, but they can easily distort the facts. Your reason is there to pass judgment, and your self-discipline is required to rein in your senses, which can actually deceive you. If you really want to own your mind, your willpower must act as the ultimate boss. It has to confidently direct those emotions, rather than letting the emotions drive the car. Which brings us to our final pillar, Pillar 3, controlled attention, the laser. So once you have the spark of creative vision and the blueprint of organized thought, you need this final piece, Controlled attention is the ability to concentrate all the activities of your mind and direct them toward one single given end, blasting through any inevitable obstacles. To really grasp the power of this laser focus, think of Thomas Edison. 10,000. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is the staggering number of times Edison failed while trying to create a practical incandescent lamp. I mean, most people would have quit after a dozen tries, right? But Edison's controlled attention, backed by that obsessional desire we talked about, kept his subconscious working on the problem until a hunch finally told him to apply the principle of charcoal making, creating a vacuum to control the oxygen. 10,000 failures were literally just stepping stones for a mind that absolutely refused to break focus. So how do you develop this kind of unstoppable focus? It's a precise 3-step method. First, you lock in your definite major purpose. Second, you organize your individual endeavor, meaning you plan every single move and verify it with your mastermind allies. And third, you apply ruthless self-discipline, harnessing those wild emotions so that absolutely no mental energy is ever wasted on fear, doubt, or distraction. And this brilliantly illustrates the incredible story of Alexander Graham Bell. He was emotionally driven to create a mechanical hearing aid for his wife, whose hearing was impaired. His focus was so intense, his desire so completely obsessional, that it acted as what he called a second sight. It allowed him to see right through ordinary scientific roadblocks, ultimately leading him to discover the principle behind the telephone itself. That is the magic of controlled attention. But look, none of these pillars mean a thing without this one word: action. Andrew Carnegie was super clear that this word must be burned into the consciousness of anyone seeking achievement. You cannot just sit around and think about your plans. You can't just passively believe in your goals. You have to express your purpose in terms of intense, persistent, physical action. Action in starting, sure, but also action in continuing when it gets really hard, and action in starting over when you are temporarily defeated. Because when you combine creative vision, organized thought, and controlled attention through relentless action, you stop drifting. You become entirely self-determining. As Ralph Waldo Emerson so powerfully put it, the key to every man is his thought. Beware when the great God lets loose a thinker on this planet. A truly disciplined, organized mind is without a doubt the most awe-inspiring force on earth. So, I'm going to ask you one more time. Do you truly control your own mind? Or is it finally time to take the wheel? If you enjoyed this, subscribe to In 8 Minutes and never miss what matters.